So once your patterns are printed, put them together in a way that the round button's shape should be formed properly. It should look like a round circle right in the center. So you have to basically align the button. Now select the size that you want to work on. Now here I'm selecting large size with cup C. Now for large size I've given blue color, so follow the blue lines, and for C I've given a dotted line, and I've given different kind of lines for every cup size. So you need to follow the one that you're working on. So follow the line that you need for your cup size and follow the color that you need for your size. Use a ruler in case you want your lines to be straight, and trace out the whole pattern. Trace the belt as well. Mark your notch. If there is a notch provided, mark a notch as well. Once your patterns are traced, cut them out accurately. Please note that these patterns do not have seam allowance. This deliberately I've not given seam allowance because there will be too many lines. There are already quite a lot of lines in this pattern. Now your patterns are ready to be used. Bring your fabric, fold your lining and keep it on top of your fabric. This pattern, the front pattern is not cut on fold. Keep it away from the fold and give half inch seam allowance all around it. At the side, give 1 inch seam allowance just in case you need to change the fitting or do anything with the fitting later on. Cut all the 4 layers of fabric, 2 for the lining and 2 for the main fabric. Once that is done, let's cut the back now. Keep your lining on your main fabric. Keep your fabric on fold and put the pins because the back does not have any seam. Give half inch seam allowance again. Measure your seam allowance if you're not used to of working freehand. Once you have marked your seam allowance line, cut all the 4 layers of fabric together. Let's now cut the belt. Belt is only for the front pattern, it's not there for the back pattern. Keep your pattern on fold. Give half inch seam allowance. We are cutting 4 layers of fabric right now, but when we open, we have only 2 layers of fabric. Similarly, fold the fusing fabric. Use the main pattern to cut it, so you don't need to measure your seam allowance again. Cut the fusing paper. Fusing is used for making your fabric a bit more stiff. We need that stiffness for the belt, so it holds your pattern, your fabric more strongly. Keep in mind, the shiny part of the fabric is the sticky part, so that should be facing the fabric. Give it a nice press and fold it and press again. Your patterns are ready now. Let's remove all the paper pins and the pattern. Let's now start tracing all the darts. So you should have your line of darts on your lining as well as on your fabric. Having your lines drawn on lining as well as on fabric makes the fit better and your sewing will be much more accurate. So draw your lines on all the patterns. Let's start pinning all the darts together first. Now while you're at it, join the shoulders as well. So for the lining, join the shoulders separately, and for the outer, join the shoulders separately. Let's now take everything to the machine and start sewing all our darts and the shoulder lines. Follow your lines, keep removing your pins as you go along. Lock your stitch when you start and lock your stitch when you stop. Now you have two shells ready, one for the lining and one for the outer. Make sure that the right side is facing the right side and you can see your darts and shoulder lines. Put your pins at the center front, matching the center fronts and the neck. Flatten your seams properly and then put your pins. Fold your belts as well and put a pin. You're putting the pins at the center front. Let's take it to the machine again and give it a stitch. Stitch the belts as well from the center front at 1/2 inch seam allowance and push the corners out. Turn it inside out and push the corners out nice and sharp. Keep them aside. Give some notches at the curve of the neck. Giving notches and cuts at the inseam makes the fabric fold better. Now let's give a stitch inside. Now this step is optional. You can, if you don't want, you're a beginner, you don't want to do that, you can totally leave it. But sewing on the lining along with the seam makes the pattern folds much better. So let's give that stitch here. So your main shell of the blouse is ready. Now you can choose to put a pad or you can choose not to put a pad. That's totally up to you. Just align the center of the pad to the beginning of the dart. Align them together and sew at the curve. Let's see that again. The center of the pad, match it with the edge starting point of your dart and put a pin on that and then sew at the center around it. Let's take it to the machine, turn it around and sew at the circumference. You have to keep adjusting your pad and align it so that you don't have any folds on your lining. Do the same thing for the other side of the bust. Let's join the belt now. It can be done in a simpler way, but I'm showing a little bit more advanced technique here. Align the belt to the center front of your fabric, of your garment. Sandwich it between your outer and the lining. Align all the 4 layers of fabric together and put pins. You can choose to do it in a much simpler way, just attaching it together, but that will not give you a seamless lining. This will give you a seamless lining. And turn it inside out, and this is how it looks. Very neat, very clean, very well finished. Repeat the same thing for the other side. Your blouse is now almost done. The front part is ready. Join the back lining with the outer. This you can do in a very simple way. Just fold the seams inward, fold them together, and then just give a stitch on top of it. You can simply double fold it also, but since we only have half-inch seam allowance there, it's better that you fold half of inch inward facing each other and then sew it together. Let's cut some bias tapes now to finish the armhole. If you're an experienced sewer, you might know how to do this, but let me just show you how to finish the armhole using bias tape. Fold your tape in half, fold it from the center, place it at the edge of your armhole, and at half-inch seam allowance, give a stitch. Give some notches at the inseam so that your bias tape folds better. Now fold it inward and give another top stitch. Do the same thing for the other side of the armhole. Give some notches and fold the seam inside. Your blouse is almost ready now. You just need to give stitches at the side now. Since we have given 1 inch seam allowance, place your pin and draw a line at 1 inch seam. You can do your fitting if you want to give more shape to it, if you want to adjust it to your size. If your size is not matching with the standard size, you can do that. Cut all the extra threads And your blouse is ready. You can put hook buttons if you want to in the center.